Hello y'all, and welcome to YoungFolk Knits. Let's talk all about the ranunculus. Hello y'all, and welcome to another episode of YoungFolk Knits. My name is Casey, and on this channel I mainly love to share all about fiber arts. Knitting, sometimes crochet, spinning, sewing, who knows where my passion for fiber will take us. I also like to share about living on a small farm here in Arkansas where my husband, myself, and our children are beekeepers. We love raising chickens, gardens, animals, and spending time outdoors here in the foothills of the Ozarks. If that sounds like your cup of tea, then make sure and subscribe so you won't miss out on any new video content. Today, however, I really wanted to chat all about the ranunculus sweater. This is a pattern that is probably the most popular knitting pattern in the world. It has been made thousands and thousands of times by thousands of people, and many of those people have made it multiple times. That tells you something right there. This is a pattern by Midori Hirose, who is an absolutely amazing designer. I really love every pattern that she has ever put out. The ranunculus is just really special though. It's knit at a really high gauge. The pattern suggests a US 10. What's so cool about the pattern though is that you can use really any weight of yarn, ranging from lace weight up to worsted. By using different weights of yarn, you can achieve a bit of a different gauge, but mainly different fabric. A very open, lightweight fabric, or with a worsted weight, a much more dense fabric. Another reason I absolutely love this top is because it combines a circular yoke with raglan shaping. This fit I find is so good for me because with circular yokes, I need a smaller size at my shoulders, but then for my bust size, it tends to increase so quickly that there's a lot of extra fabric and the fit just doesn't usually end up working well for my body type. However, doing a yoke for the first part of the shoulder and then switching to raglan increases, then I'm able to spread out my increases and increase in the area that I need it. This creates an absolutely amazing fit. This is the first ranunculus that I ever made. I chose to knit it with a sport weight from Little Fox Yarn Co. and it was a blend of summer fibers. It has linen, silk, cotton, viscose, and I believe a bit of wool as well. I used the US 10 needles and I made a little bit of a modification for the sleeves. So when making the pattern, you can choose long sleeves or you can simply bind off immediately as you split for the sleeves, and that's going to be your short sleeves. I wanted a little bit of a longer short sleeve though. So what I did was follow the instructions to split for sleeves for the long sleeves. I put those stitches on hold. Then when I went back to pick up my sleeve stitches, I again followed the instruction for that row only on the long sleeve option. Then what I did was just knit a few rows to the length that I wanted. So I think I knit probably 5 rows, and then I did twisted rib hem for the sleeve or ribbing here to match my collar. So there's lots of different options. This is a paid for pattern, so I do want to be a little bit careful with the numbers, but I will tell you a few numbers that I did personally use. For my collar on this version, I cast on 60 stitches with a German twisted cast on. I then proceeded to knit my ribbing rows, my twisted rib, and then at the end I just follow the instructions from there on out. I increase to the number of stitches that it tells you to after you finish your ribbing, and I completely followed the instructions. I made this version before she had updated sizing, and it's been so long ago that I honestly can't remember all the details of that pattern. I did not print that pattern out, so the electronic version has changed and I can no longer find that original numbers. I knit this mainly to wear with dresses. It does kind of fall right at the top of my pants, but I really like this. It's not too tight, but it's definitely not wildly oversized. And I was able to knit this with 2.5 skeins of a sport weight yarn. So I am currently making another ranunculus. And this time I'm using fingering weight yarn, which is a 50% cotton, 50% linen blend, and I've decided to hold that double. So I want to show you a few of the modifications that I've been making on this version. First of all is my neckline. Whereas on this neckline, I cast on 60 stitches, I decided for this one, I wanted to start off by casting on 75 stitches. And I again used the German twisted cast on to do that. So I cast on my 75 stitches and I worked my ribbing per the instructions. I just did my twisted rib knitting for the number of rows that it recommends. And then whenever it came time to increase at the bottom of my ribbing, I simply took my number of 75, subtracted that from the number I needed to increase to, and I got the number of stitches I was going to need to increase. So that number of stitches I just evenly distributed throughout my circumference at the bottom of the ribbing. And then I was ready at that point to just follow the pattern as written. I am making the size 5 with the updated pattern, so I'm excited to see how the fit is going to be. I decided I wanted my short sleeves to be a tad bit longer in this version. So I once again followed the instructions for the long sleeve on the row that I split for the body and the sleeves. And I put those stitches on hold, and when I was ready to come back and work the sleeve, I followed the instructions for the row where you're attaching new yarn and picking up stitches, and then I just did my own thing. So what I did was knit 15 rows straight. I did not increase, I did not decrease, I just knit 15 rows after the row where I picked up my stitches. And then I started my hem. So I wanted to do my sleeve ribbing that exactly matched my collar ribbing. So I did 8 rows of the twisted rib. And when I got to the bind off, I decided to do Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy bind off. And I did that because I want the sleeves to be loose and flowy. And this is a yarn that has absolutely zero stretch to it. Unlike wool, cotton and linen will grow with blocking and wear, but it's not going to be stretchy. So I thought that this would be a really great way to get drapey and loose sleeve. I love this sort of sea green, moody, blue, gray, smoky color. I don't even know, but I feel like it leans more on the green side. And I'm really loving that summer yarn. I think it's gonna be great. Because this is such a flat yarn, it definitely has no halo, no plump to it. It's got quite an open fabric. I mean, not wild, but enough that I will probably wear this over camisoles and over dresses. That's my intention. And I think it's going to be really nice. The drape is amazing. Another awesome thing about a ranunculus is the sheer speed at which you can knit it. This is about 4 hours worth of knitting, and I have a completed yoke, 2 sleeves, and I'm working halfway through the body. So you really cannot beat that. I'm working on US 10 needles, and I'm using these Lantern Moon interchangeable needles, which they very kindly gifted me. I absolutely love how beautiful they are. They have this gorgeous gold here at the ends, and what's absolutely amazing is their swivel cords. So they actually swivel where they are attached to the needle. It's amazing. So I'm knitting the body on these wooden US 10 needles, but for the sleeves, I really like knitting on 9-inch circulars. As far as I know, now if y'all know where to find these, please tell me in the comments, but I don't think that they make a US 10 9-inch circular needle. I've never been able to find one. I have found a US 9 on Hiya Sharps. So I do have that in a 9-inch circular needle. And since they're metal, it does increase my gauge. And I find that if I'm using a US 10 in wooden needles on the body, then I'm able to use the US 9-inch circular needles because they are metal. So it pretty much gives me the exact same gauge. You cannot tell at all that I switched to a smaller needle for the sleeves. And that way it really makes my sleeves go by so much faster. The other thing I wanted to share is that whenever I'm using plant-based fibers, I find that it is really hard to attach new yarn and weave in those ends without it being extremely visible. Especially in a really open weave fabric, it's just gonna show up. So since it's not wool, you cannot spit splice, and just attaching with the two ends loose that you're gonna go back and weave in, I don't like doing, because like I said, it does tend to be visible and they don't tend to stay in place very well. So my favorite join for a plant-based fiber is the Magic Knot. Now I don't really like this join other times because I am a bit of a perfectionist and I feel like you can see the join, and in wools I can get such a seamless yarn join that you can't even tell it's there by using other methods, that I will probably never use that in those situations. This situation, that join is perfect though. So let me show you how I do that. So on this particular join, you can see right here where I've already done it on one of these two strands, and it is visible. Hopefully some of that will be behind the stitch since it is knit rows on the next row, but you can see that it is a little bit visible. So this is the yarn that is attached to my project and it has run out, and then this is the yarn that I will be attaching to it from a new ball. So let's start by laying down our yarn from the new ball in a sort of a V position. And then over the top of that, we're going to lay our old yarn that has run out. So we're going to do a series of knots here. First of all, we'll take the new yarn and see how it's positioned underneath our old yarn here in the X that it makes. So what we're going to do is take the new yarn, go over the top of the old yarn and underneath. Now it's just wrapped around and come back to its original position, but it's gone over the top, under, and back up here. Now we're going to take this, which is the tail of our old yarn, and it is going to go over the top of the new yarn and underneath. So just a knot here. So now we formed these two knots basically, one here on the bottom, one on the top, and we've got this sort of circle. So now we're going to tighten that up. So I like to grab both strands of yarn here and both strands of yarn here and pull as tightly as possible. Really pull hard. Then you can take these two long pieces and pull again. To secure it, also take these two short pieces and pull. So you now have created this very tight, very small, very secure knot between your two yarns. It's right here. We need to get rid of these short pieces on either end. So to do that, we'll take our scissors and trim as closely to the knot as you can. So if you can, get in there and trim it. Don't cut your knot. Now you have a new join, and especially since this is in the front of my work, it's going to be a little bit less visible than trying to weave ends in that aren't going to want to stay secure and would be visible. So for me, this is a really great option. And if you're holding two yarns together, the other yarn helps to smooth it out a bit. Give it a try, see what you think. Using that join also really helps when you're holding two yarns together and they don't end at the same time. That way you have one continuous strand next to your join, and it sort of helps to blend it in a little bit better, I find. All I have left to do is finish my body and do my hem with the ribbing. So what I plan to do is probably knit this to a body of 11 inches, and then I will do 8 rounds of twisted rib for my hem, and I will again bind off with Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off so that I have a really flowy, loose top that I can wear over dresses, that I can wear with high-waisted pants, sort of like I'm wearing this one, and I'm very excited to add this to my wardrobe. As far as future ranunculus plans go, I do have quite a few. I would really love to do a winter ranunculus or a long sleeve version, and I would love to make that super oversized and flowy with lots of drape. I think that would be a lot of fun, like a big oversized sweatshirt almost. This is a pattern I think everyone should try once, so if you haven't made one, you should definitely add it to your queue. It's a great stash buster as well if you don't mind a really open weave and cropped tee. This is a great pattern to use up one special skein of lace weight or fingering yarn as well. Thank y'all so much for hanging out with me today. If you enjoy videos like this, then make sure and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new video content. And until next time, happy knitting, y'all.